第一个议程。那第一个议程是国际网络争议讯息查证工具的发展。那我们是由那个 Google 亚太区新闻实验室主管 Irene J. Liu 及 Storyful 亚洲区编辑 Ian Martin 担任主讲。Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us again. We are now going to have our first session in the afternoon, which is the development of fact-checking tools used in online journalism, presented by Irene J. Liu, Google News Lab lead for Asia Pacific, and Ian Martin, Storyful Asia editor. Now, please welcome Ms. Liu and Mr. Martin.
Hello. 大家好. I'm going to apologize to start by saying that I'm going to use English for my presentation because I guarantee you my Chinese is much worse than all of your English, probably. So, but if you have any questions at the end of the session, please feel free to ask. Luckily, we have these wonderful translators who can help as well. So thank you so much for having us here today. I'm just going to do a very quick little introduction to Google News Lab and talk a little bit about the work that we're doing to help support online verification and fact-checking in Asia. But just a very, very quick little talk because I want to give you guys as much time with Ian as possible because he is one of the experts in Asia about this work. And so I want to give as much time as possible to him. So what is Google News Lab? When I talk about Google News Lab, I always like to start with Google's mission, which is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. This is probably a familiar mission to all of you in the room because journalists have been doing the same thing long before the internet, long before Google ever existed. It's a really unique and challenging time for news. Technology has disrupted business models. It's also changed the way that journalists have to do their work. And even more significantly, now that more and more people have smartphones, anyone can shoot a picture, shoot a video, write a story, and publish it on the internet for anyone to access, right? So, and it's not just, it's the internet, it's their own websites, blogs, Twitter, Line, Facebook, Link, every platform you can imagine. And so the question is, when anyone can commit a journalistic act, how do journalists actually differentiate themselves? And when anyone can publish things to the internet, how do you make sure that the information that our readers are getting is high quality? And I think that that's actually a really, really important opportunity now for journalists. Of course, the bridges between technology and media are getting closer and closer and stronger. We can't really think about doing our work without, as journalists, we can't think about doing our work without thinking about the platforms where they will actually be published. So, we at Google believe that creating a more informed world takes journalists and technologists working together. We think technology can be very helpful to journalism, and quite frankly, journalism, the world, society needs journalism, needs high quality journalism, and Google as a company, we also want there to be high quality information in the world as well. So that's where Google News Lab comes in. We are a small but mighty team based all over the world. So I am the News Lab lead for Asia Pacific, so the whole of Asia Pacific, and we have about 19 people around the world. Many of them, like me, are former journalists. And so I worked at Reuters and at the South China Morning Post for a number of years before joining Google this year. We do our work in kind of 4 different focus areas. The first is trust and verification. This is very important to me and very important to the work that we do in the Asia Pacific region. This issue of quote unquote fake news Misinformation is a big issue around this region, and so we've really focused a lot of energy on this. Also, other areas are data journalism, immersive storytelling, and inclusive storytelling. And we do our work in a lot of ways. The first is through training and events. So we actually we actually make a point to do a lot of training in newsrooms. So I will actually go in and talk about Google tools and other tools and how you can use them in your day-to-day reporting, as well as investigative reporting and fact-checking and verification. We also hold events where we bring guest speakers and experts to various places, like such as Ian, to talk about the work that they do. And so you can actually hear it from the people who know how to do this work the best. We also are very involved in product and research. So journalists use Google tools quite often, so we want to make sure that they work for you. So I'm sort of that person who will be your ambassador within the company. If you're using a Google tool, if you have feedback, we are the ones who talk to the product teams and tell them how you're using them, and also what you think works and what also doesn't work. Another thing that we like to do is we like to bring people together. We know that we're a small team and we can't do everything, and really the answers and the solutions should come from the industry. So we want to be able to help to make those connections and get people talking, people who are doing similar work. And so just specifically about trust and verification, because that's what we're talking about today. We have trained more than 100,000 journalists around the world since 2016. And our goal is to get Google tools into the hands of 500,000 journalists this year, which is a big, big task. As I mentioned, we go to events, we hold events, we also do trainings in newsrooms. We also have a website, which is the Google News Lab website, and it has a number of training modules and tutorials about how to use Google tools, especially for things like fact-checking and verification. And I'm very happy to say that we are near the end of our translation of the website into Chinese. So hopefully in the next couple of months, you will actually be able to take those lessons in Chinese yourself as well. And so the lessons you'll see here are like on verification and how you can use the tools. Another thing that we've been doing is we are one of the founding partners for the First Draft Network. These guys are the experts at how you do verification and training around the world. They are an NGO focused just on this work. Storyful is also a founding partner of this network as well. And what's really exciting about the work that they're doing is they are trying to make sure that everyone has access to the latest tools and methods of how to do this work. So to be honest, when I'm preparing to do trainings, I actually go to their website as well. And the other thing is they also are a partner network, so all of your news organizations are welcome to apply to become part of this partner network. And when you do, you can get access to their training materials, their tools. They're about to roll out a very comprehensive training curriculum about how to do fact-checking and online verification. And I know that they are looking for partners who can help to translate and localize this training curriculum for each country. Because of course, the issue of misinformation is different in every country, and of course language is a big issue as well. And so they want to find partners who can help bring this curriculum to the rest of the world, not just English speakers. First Draft also has done a lot of initiatives to try to help provide fact-checking and verification in important moments, such as elections. So they ran something called Cross-Check in France. They just finished something called Wall Check in Germany. And they have now expanded their work in Asia, mostly in partnership with the Google News Lab. So poor Ian has been on many planes working in partnership with First Draft and with Google News Lab to do trainings all over the region, and we will continue to do so. We've also worked to help translate First Draft materials into a number of languages, including Korean and Indonesian, and hopefully Chinese if there's a need. And we've done big trainings all over Asia as well. And the last thing I'll talk about before I hand over to Ian is what Google as a company is also doing to help elevate high quality information. So one of the big challenges, of course, is that if you go back to your newsroom, you'll say, this is amazing, I really want to do fact checking and online verification, and it's great. But the question is, if people are looking for the truth, will they actually find it? Will they find your article that is high quality information, or will they find the viral thing that everyone's sharing, right? So one of the ways that we are trying to make sure that high quality information is elevated is by creating something called the fact check tag. So the first thing we have to do when we talk about this is to talk about what exactly is a fact check. The idea behind fact checking is you have a statement, a public statement. And so using all of your skills as a reporter, you find out whether or not that statement is true or false. So this is not getting into the area of like someone's opinion versus another person's opinion. Those are two different things. So if a politician says, the Ministry of Transportation spent $2 billion in 2016, that's a fact that you can verify, right? So really making sure that you're talking about facts as opposed to opinions. When news organizations or other initiatives are fact-checking material, they can actually implement something called the fact check tag. And when it is implemented, it shows up in Google News like this. If you see the red box here, you'll see that there's a tag that says fact check. So the idea behind this is that if you do a fact check and then you input some code into your story, then you're telling Google that this is an article that provides a fact check, and that's how you get that tag. So it appears in Google News. It also appears in search. So if somebody, all the time there are always these rumors, especially health rumors. If let's say you are on WhatsApp and your aunt sends you an article that says, eating apples will give you kidney failure, right? We get these articles all the time. My mother loves to send them to me. If you want to, you go to search, you look up. If there has been an article that has fact-checked that issue, and they have implemented the fact-check tag, then you can actually see in search and in news that there is a little fact check. So you can see here that there's a story about kidney theft that people always share all the time, and there's a fact check by Snopes.com in the US. It also appears in mobile. This is the code, and it's all open source. You can just go to schema.org if you want to implement this. The other way of implementing this is something called Share the Facts. This is a widget that does not require coding. It also allows you to create these little cards that you can put your own icons in. So the Washington Post is actually using this widget. And by using this widget, it not only appears on your website, but also it has the code in the background so that it can appear in Google as well. But this is just the beginning. We are trying to find as many ways as possible to partner with journalists around the world to help to provide solutions to this very important issue. So please keep in touch. I think my contact information should be in this book. If you are interested in partnership or would like an introduction to the First Draft Network, please feel free to get in contact with me. And with that, I'm going to hand over right to Ian. Thanks so much.
Thank you for the introduction, Irene. Could we swap around the slides so we can get started? Great, ready to go. So I also was going to tell you a little bit about First Draft as well, but there's no need now because Irene has explained this very well. But we're one of the members, and just like to sort of introduce, sort of why I'm here today to talk to you. So I work for a news agency, and I run the bureau for this news agency in Hong Kong. We've got a team of 6 journalists there. But Storyful isn't just a news agency in the traditional sense. We are also partly a technology company. We spotted that there was a lot of information. Often stories were being broken first by people on social media rather than traditional journalists. And those people, when they're eyewitnesses to news stories going on around them, they're taking photos, sharing video, maybe now also streaming live video in HD from the middle of a story. But at the same time, there's also a lot of fake information, a lot of misinformation being shared on social media. And our company was created to help other journalists to navigate this, to help them find real stories, to connect with real eyewitnesses, and then also to shut down the fakes and make sure they don't spread. To do that, we're using technology to help us monitor what is happening on social media, to find stories, to find videos, to find photos from breaking news events. And then we as journalists are using some of the training, some of the tools that we've built to help separate what is real from what is fake, and then send it over to our clients, some of them who may be in the room. But no. So let's give you a bit of an overview of what we're going to talk about today. So start by talking about sort of what is this area of sort of misinformation, disinformation. I try not to use this term, but it's become very popular. Fake news. I think also in Taiwan, this is an issue that many people are very concerned with. I'm going to talk about some techniques for how you can spot misinformation and disinformation, how you can fight back, and then also what tools are available to you to help your newsrooms in doing this. So I'm going to borrow this slide from my former colleague, Claire Wardle, and who's now the lead of First Draft. She created this slide to help us understand what are the different kinds of misinformation, disinformation. I'm sorry this is only in English, but wasn't able to get this translated. But essentially, there's different varieties of this, what has been called by some people as fake news. And it kind of breaks down into two different areas. Disinformation. Somebody's created something intentionally false with the intention of misleading somebody, the reader. Misinformation is when it's being mistakenly shared. Perhaps the person posting it to Facebook, to Twitter, to Line, they don't understand that this is fake, that this is the kind of the bogus health story that goes viral on these platforms. And some things are posted as a joke. So it helps us to understand when we categorize what we're dealing with and how best to tackle it. So this term of fake news has been mainly focused, I think, in the US around certain types of websites that are impersonating other journalists, other news organizations, but they're trying to make money from online advertising by creating a crazy headline about a politician. Politician has done this. I must read this. People jump in and they realize there's nothing to this story, but maybe they just only see the headline and then share it forward. I think we as journalists, we're a little bit too suspicious to be fooled by this kind of content. And often sort of when they're sort of, you can often spot these mistakes very easily. Some of these sites are slightly better put together and can be confusing. Sometimes people can just be taking a copy as a photo of, say, the New York Times, Washington Post, and then making some changes in the code to change the headline or to Photoshop the headline and then share it forwards. But some of the ways you can check for this is often these websites want to look like a legitimate news organization, but the URL, the web address, is wrong. If you're looking for ABC News in America, they've registered ABC News with a different URL name or domain registry with intention of misleading people, or they've not entirely copied the website right. So this website has got the wrong kind of logo. You also find that they're running the wrong kind of adverts. You find most advertisers don't want to be associated with this type of website, and you see some kind of crazy adverts alongside. That's another reason for you to be suspicious about the source of this information. Often you can find clues about the website in the About section. Often these websites claim to be humor, a form of parody or satire, when their real intention is actually just to be shared and go viral on Facebook and to make money. Sometimes they'll talk about this in the About section, sometimes they won't. But then also, as journalists, you can also find some clues there about who is the person who created this misinformation, disinformation website. And then you can understand maybe what their motivation is. Like with one recent example, I was seeing a story that was related to the hurricane in the United States. I can see this website with a very crazy claim and a crazy video. Started to look into this website, started to track backwards. I took the URL from the website, it looks like it should be a legitimate website writing about things in Florida, but I take the URL, I take this to a tool called Whois, the main registry, which tells you who registered the website. I can see that it is registered to address in St. Petersburg, not Florida, St. Petersburg, Russia, which is a clue that maybe something is not entirely right about the information on the show. Just to mention about the Whois, and to talk about one recent example from the French elections where we were involved in. This is a story that my colleagues in the United States were working on. So they were working on this through the Crosscheck Coalition. So part of what we do is following what happens on public social media, the platforms that you're familiar with, Facebook, Twitter. We're also interested in what you may call dark social media. This could be what's happening within messaging apps like WhatsApp, or Line, where people have very large groups and they're sharing information. But also on websites, which I think popular in the West, but not Taiwan, like 4chan, where people are organizing and talking and planning in small private rooms. So this is a story about how somebody in the French election tried to create a piece of fake news to try and discredit Emmanuel Macron. They were talking about what can we do to make French people not like Emmanuel Macron, and they decided the answer is there needs to be a story that he's got a secret bank account in the Caribbean. My colleagues were following this, they were in the discussion as well. They can see that these people are talking about it, and see them also, one person is also making some fake documents. Unfortunately, the world we're in, these stories don't stay on these small forums for teenagers, they spread. So this was very quickly picked up by one of these misinformation, disinformation websites who make money from running these kind of crazy stories with no fact-checking. Again, sadly, it doesn't stay there. It gets spread even further when it's been shared by people in the extreme right in the United States. It's now on Twitter. It's now going viral on Twitter with 4,000 retweets. But then also, we're talking again about these closed networks where information is being spread, and also it's being spread in an organized way. This is another website called Discord. This is very popular with right-wing organizations. It's behind a password, so you need to be invited to some of these conversations. But now you have people involved in the right wing in France. They've seen the story in America, and now they're discussing, how can we make this story go viral in France? How can we make people, normal people, outside of this small bubble, how can we make this go viral on social media? And from there, you can see they've created plans and photos of this bogus document, and then they push it out through the main party accounts to the rest of the world. Good thing was that we're involved in this story. We spotted the people at the start. We spotted the people on 4chan, and we were able to debunk this story. You have other forms of fake content. This is a story that went viral recently. You don't often see this kind of manipulation with video because it's much harder. And often when people do it, they're not very good. And it's very easy for journalists to see and spot that this is fake. Sometimes they're very good. Like this is a video we saw recently where it's meant to be a hawk picks up a snake and throws the snake at a family having a picnic in Australia. It seems very crazy, and you know the normal answer is if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. The way you spot this often with these manipulated videos is to pick out the editing mistakes. It's very hard to do this kind of editing, and people often make mistakes when they do that. To do this, we'd approach it with a frame-by-frame analysis. We'd start to look at why are there inconsistencies. We can see that the snake is very big at the end of the video, but then at the start of the video, it's very small. It's grown in size very quickly. It doesn't really make sense, which is a clue. You can also see that there's other things in the background, like this bird doesn't react to the rest of the video. These are all clues when you're looking at videos like that you may be dealing with a fake. So let's start by overview. So like part of what we're doing to tackle this problem of misinformation, disinformation is training, talking to you, sharing tools that we're using. We've also involved in projects like Electionland, where we're trying to spot fakes around the US election. This was a little bit narrow in terms of just focused on trying to spot fake content and misleading content based around election day. maybe this should have been a bigger project in retrospect, but you learn these things. But also very involved in this cross-check coalition and also wall-check in Germany, trying to spot fake and debunk fake content around the French and German election. We're also involved as a company in trying to sort of disrupt the economics of people building these fake news websites. Advertisers don't want to have their products, they don't want to have their adverts running on these sites. It's bad for their business to be associated with them. So like the technology side of my company is trying to build a registry to try and help advertisers understand who are the good guys, who are the bad guys. So they can, and the idea is if you make this economically unattractive to the people creating this fake content, there's some people who create fake content for political reasons or they have other motivations, but many of them are interested in money. If they can't make money from doing this, then this will maybe limit the problem. Then also another part of it is I mentioned about sort of we're trying to understand what is this world of sort of dark social media, what is separate from what you can see on Facebook, what you can see on social media, Twitter. So we're trying to understand what happens inside messaging groups. We've been somewhat successful with this already in how we report on the Islamic State in Syria and Iraq. Following a crackdown on Western social media, they moved to other platforms. They started to use Telegram, which is a Russian messaging app and is encrypted. But we were able to sort of track them there, and we can see how they operate inside small chat rooms within the Telegram app. You can see what they discuss, what content they share, and we can understand how that is created, and then also how it's shared out onto like the public platforms. Yeah. So I was going to talk a bit more in just detail about kind of like the core of what we do at Storyful. And I also think what is probably the most relevant for you as a journalist, if you're working in a newsroom, often you see in a breaking news situation, the first photos, first videos come from members of the public who are on the ground at the scene of the story. They're involved in the story. But there's a problem is a lot of this content can be fake, and often journalists in this situation are caught out because they're maybe rushing, or maybe they don't have some checks in place in their newsroom to say, take a hard look and say, is this real or is this fake? So I'm going to talk to you about some of the steps that we go through. So this is a recent video that came out during during one of the hurricanes, Hurricane Maria, in the United States. It's a very dramatic video. It's meant to show high winds destroying the small town. There's a problem though. This video has been online for over a year and actually comes from Uruguay. And this was shared by a relatively famous journalist in Florida and went very viral. One version of this video attracted maybe 30 million views on YouTube before it was debunked. This should have been easy to spot if you just followed some of the checks I'm going to talk to you later. But you know, this happens almost every day, that journalists somewhere around the world is misled by some bogus photos, some bogus videos, and are using this in their reporting. So this is CNN using footage they thought is from Brussels, from the attack at the airport last year, when actually this is a video that came from Russia many years ago, but they've been tricked. So let's talk about what you can do to avoid this. Our approach to this is to have a process, and we call this verification. So we're interested in running through some checks whenever we're looking at anything that's coming from social media. We want to understand, just the basics of journalism. Who, what, where, when, why. We all know this, but I think when some journalists are dealing with social media, there's this idea that it's kind of maybe a black box, just, oh, it came from social media. But no, somebody posted it, somebody shot the video. What are their motivations? Then part of that is to work through these three things to understand what is the source of the video, who filmed the video, when was the video filmed, then also where was the video filmed. And also, just before I sort of launch into running through these steps, I can just draw a distinction in terms of what we do. In terms of a Storyful, we're focused on verification. So organizations like Bellingcat as well. So we're seeing stories that are coming from social media, but we don't really know very much about them. We see in a photo or video, we maybe know one thing. They say this video is showing the hurricane in the United States. But we don't have any other facts, and we're trying to work backwards to find out the who, the what, the where, the when, the why. Whereas with fact-checking, I view this as more just in terms of President Trump makes a crazy claim, and then it's up to the guys at PolitiFacts or Snopes to say, well, he promised 5 billion, but there's only 1 billion in the budget. Fact-checking is you're starting with a statement, and then you're working backwards to support or disprove this. But no. But say just before we get into any of the technical detail, one of the most important things is to be skeptical. If a story seems too good to be true, it probably is. This is a story that went viral earlier this year in India, but it's about Taiwan. And it went viral because of this very crazy video that's meant to show a gangster driving a Lamborghini shooting somebody in Taipei. One of our other clients asked us about this video and said, is this real? And my first reaction was obviously, this doesn't sound like Taipei. And it's always good to have that kind of skeptical outset, and just if it seems to be too good to be true, it probably is. This is a very dramatic video. It's meant to show like suddenly somebody filming the shooting, this gangster very up close, and that doesn't seem to make sense. And the reason why it doesn't make sense is because it's actually from a movie. Somebody, like a member of the public, is filming a TV shoot from his house, and you can see at the start of the video, you have a camera crew, you have the crane with the lighting, and you have the director in the chair shouting. And in the full video, you also see they then do it again for like another take. But somebody had edited the video down and then posted it on social media. It's like, oh, look at this crazy video. Often the steps to avoid this, and one of the best things you can do as a journalist when you're dealing with anything social media, is to use tools like Google reverse image search or TinEye. These photos are coming from a video that gets shared every time there's an earthquake in almost any country. It's meant to show water flying out of the swimming pool when the earthquake comes. It's a very dramatic video, and people obviously like it because they keep posting it. It's from every country in the world, when actually it's a story from Mexico almost 10 years ago now. Just taking the thumbnail from this video or taking a still and running this through Google reverse image search will tell you instantly that this is an old video and you do not need to do any more checking on this story. This is a video that I see all appear in the media maybe 2 or 3 times every year. It's very easy to avoid making this mistake. So I was in the Philippines last week, and in the Philippines they have a real problem with this topic of misinformation and disinformation. It's very political in the Philippines, and it's being used to target mostly the opposition. This is a senator from the Philippines, and she's supposedly holding a banner showing support for a terrorist group. Again, that seems a little bit crazy. This can't be true. And the answer is, it's fake. And you can work this backwards through using some tools, like technical analysis, and look at the EXIF. You can see from the level of highlights that the photo has been edited. They've gone into a photo that she had shared many years ago, showing support for a natural disaster, and had edited the text in the story. This tool isn't perfect. This is like another image that was being shared on Filipino social media earlier this year. Obviously, some of you may recognize President Duterte. I don't think he's joined the military just yet. But these tools of the error level analysis are powerful, but they don't always work. Technically, this photo would look okay using these tools, but clearly it's not true. And the answer is, you're able to work backwards and find that this is a photo somebody had stolen from the Belgian Army website, and had edited the photo in. But this is also another one we're able to spot using Google reverse image search from the rest of the photo. So I guess stay with the Philippines, just talk more about the detail approach. So whenever we're watching a video, we're trying to understand where it was filmed. This is important for us in our reporting to understand, Is this real or fake? And also, how does it fit into this bigger story? So this is a video that was coming from the Philippines. There's an ongoing conflict in the south, in this city, Marawi. And this is a video that was being shared. It was meant to show that there's an airstrike in the city. And we're being asked by our clients, is this real? And is it from this place at this time? How do we go about understanding that? Well, whenever we're watching a video that's been shared from social media, we're trying to understand what clues can we see. Also from any photo we're seeing, what clues can we see from it? Are there any landmarks? If we see a car, is there a number plate on the car? Is there a street sign? Can we read the street sign? What language will the street sign be in? These are all clues which are very helpful to us to understand, where the video is filmed. Like with this one, so often the best tool for us is Google Street View, just in terms of it's a unique record of the world. But unfortunately, it hasn't reached the southern Philippines just yet. We're able to work backwards and say, well, what are the structures in that video, and can we find them on the satellite view on Google Maps? And we were, I had to spot those buildings, those structures. This is a very powerful tool for us, particularly in places like Iraq and Syria, where there isn't really very much public information, but we're able to use the satellite view to spot structures, buildings, mosques that appear in the video to help understand where they were filmed. Google Images is also a very valuable tool for this. This is actually a photo from a Filipino journalist, but able to find the same building that featured in the video from a different angle. They're able to help us understand that this was a genuine, valid video. Talk about just more, like another example of the Philippines. Obviously, you have a lot of typhoons, particularly this year, and this is a video that came from Hualien, or at least it was being described as being from Hualien. So a dramatic video we're interested in, showing waves and the typhoon hitting the city. But how do we know this is Hualien? Again, we're looking for any visual clues. We know it's by some kind of dock. We can also see that there's a Taiwanese flag. Like sometimes you get lucky and it makes it very easy if you have this. But also you can find other things in the video. Like obviously this makes it very easy when you see a store, a sign. I can start to Google this. And then we're able to find the exact same spots on Google Street View. Now the date, understanding when a video is filmed is maybe the most difficult parts of this sort of verification process. As I discussed, often the problem is old content that's being re-uploaded and being relabeled as being described as something else. This can make it difficult because it's a genuine video, it looks real, but it's just from another place. So this is probably the area where most journalists are caught out, that it's the old footage being re-uploaded. But there are steps you can take. Again, reverse image search is very powerful for this. This is a video that was picked up by another number of journalists earlier this year. It's meant to show a meteor in the sky over San Diego, California. When I started to look at this, it looked a little bit too good, a little bit familiar. So I did some more checking, run it through reverse image search, was able to find the exact same video being online already. You can see the video had been online already, and then started to dig backwards. Often this process of trying to understand where a video comes from, when it was filmed, it means searching in reverse chronological order. You need to work backwards, find the first time it was online. From there, you can start to ask some more questions about, where it was filmed, what is the source. It's very hard to do this otherwise. Having found this video, and this, the reverse image search tool works best really on photographs. You can also apply it to videos as well. This can work with this example from the thumbnail. Whenever you have a video that's been uploaded to YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, there will be a thumbnail generated. So when you see the preview, this will appear. This makes it very easy for you to use these tools like Google Image Reverse Search and also TinEye. These will be archived on these websites. which will make it easy to search. Unfortunately, sometimes people can be very clever, and if they're trying to fool people, they change the thumbnail to like another frame from within the video, or maybe something completely different. But these tools also work on sections of the video. If you take a frame, screenshot it, it can work on these tools. You can even use this on a section of the video. In the past, I've used this to say, I can see somebody in the video. There's a policeman who's got a icon on his uniform. I was able to take a screenshot of this and then run it through the tool, and this showed me where this organization came from. I was able to recognize the logo that appeared in that. Sometimes it's not so easy. Sometimes you need to be a lot more creative and in sort of questioning, when this video is filmed, or just it doesn't appear so easily using these tools. Then you need to start asking, well, what else is there about the video? Sometimes you have access to the file or the photo file. You can find what metadata is in it. If it's a photo and you have access to the JPEG or RAW file, you can look at the EXIF data. You can see the data will show you when the video was taken, and also on what type of camera it was taken on, which can be very valuable. This is more difficult when it's been uploaded through social media. This data has been stripped by the social network, and you only have the upload dates from the first time it appeared on the social network. You can also find other clues in the video. So, we're asking critically, just like, well, if this is meant to be from Taiwan today, we know what is the weather like in Taipei now. Why is there a rainstorm in the video? Why is the ground wet from rain if this was meant to be filmed today? Now, these are all sort of questions we ask, and I think it's good to apply these in your reporting if you deal with social media. And it helps checks that help you avoid being tricked by content shared on social media. Perhaps the most important part of the story is the source. I think it's very difficult to incorporate anything from social media in your reporting unless you understand who is the person who took the photo or video or made the statements, and also to understand what is their motivation. We talked already about sort of this area of misinformation, disinformation. People often have a very specific agenda when they're pushing this content. They want it to go viral, to be shared for a reason. What is that? Also, there's the issue of when we as journalists are using content from members of the public in breaking news situations, they own the copyright to the photo, to the video. A big part of what we do at Storyful is we help manage that. So we deal with the copyright and the clearance for the TV organizations and newspapers we work with. This is very complicated with them for working with different countries, different laws on copyright, and that's a big part of what we do. But it's just something to be bear in mind. Often people are very happy for journalists to use their photos and videos. They may not realize they're valuable, but I think it's important we respect their copyright. But to work out who took a photo or video, understand where something from social media came from, often involves tracking backwards to do some digital detective work to find what have they posted in the past. If you have this person, I mentioned the video from Typhoon Nisat, does it make sense that this person was in Hualien to take this video on this day? Well, when I start to look at his profile on social media, it's a video from YouTube, but he's got no other videos on this account first time. This makes me very suspicious, but then when I find his username from YouTube, I can then find he uses the same name on Facebook. I can see that on Facebook, he's listed as having a job in Hualien, and on Facebook, he's posted many photos, many selfies every day in the city, and that, that makes me more confident that he is the person who took the video. We could kind of call this the social profile of somebody to understand what is their history really on social media, and does this tie with what you know about them in real life? Does it make sense that they would be in the right place at the right time to take the photo or video we're talking about? Also, I think it's important to understand, consider the ethics. We mentioned about copyright, but also potentially we as journalists need to consider their safety. I think this is even more of an issue when you're dealing with platforms where people can broadcast live. This is something we've seen many times. People are involved in a breaking news situation, they may be in danger. They're sharing video live. Potentially they may be endangering themselves or maybe also other people involved in the story, particularly when we as a media would broadcast this out and help it reach a wider audience. And then also sort of what is the experience of the person sharing the content. Often people are posting things to their social media. They don't realize how public it is. They may not realize their privacy settings are very open. So it's potentially worth considering what impact if there's consideration. Is it newsworthy? Is there a news story in sharing this? Often there is. But I think that's just something that we need to consider as journalists when we're dealing with anything from social media. So let's leave you a summary. Here are some of the tools that we use here at Storyful, and I've kind of broken them down into like some headings on some of the broad areas of how we use them. So I'll leave that for a little bit later, but that's my presentation, and I think I open it some question and answer. Very good.
I think we can keep it pretty informal. If anyone has questions for either of us, go ahead.
Hi, I have a question for Ian. You just mentioned the tools for Storyful, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, I want to make sure that can you make sure that those tools are the best tool? And I think where do verification or fact checking, you must have to make sure that you have enough talents and enough big enough database, right? Yeah.
So
yeah. Where do you?
Sorry. Yeah. The question was, are these the best tools? And then also, do you have enough information, or like?
Two questions. One is, what is your database for fact checking or verification? And second question is, how can you make sure that those databases, the data in the database is correct, is qualified for fact checking?
Okay, that's a good question. Often there's a kind of right tool for the right job. And often some of these tools are only good for one thing only. And often, like, where it's difficult is, like, people would like to make this automated, just so you put the video, you put the photo into the machine, and then it says, yes, true, fake. It's not, and it actually involves a lot of work from the journalists who need to be, kind of cunning to understand, to sort through this. In terms of the data, I mean, we've built some own tools internally where we have access to APIs for platforms like Facebook and also Weibo and Twitter, partially Twitter. So I mean, that gives us as a news organization a head start that we can tap into that. And there's a lot of really complicated stuff that the technology people do in sorting through that. As a journalist, I'm just kind of seeing the results as it come into me. I would also say, like, some of the tools here, they do the same thing, or at least partially similar things to what we can do internally at Storyful. I think you can open source much of what we do using these tools. But I mean, potentially the bigger issue of, like, are you missing things on social media? Yes. I mean, there's a huge amount of content on Facebook which is set to private, and then, like, and as Irene says, sort of Facebook is semi-private, and then you have something like Line, where people could be sharing, incredible stories, breaking news, photos, videos, but we'll never see it because we cannot search into Line. So yeah, I think this is a very interesting area. I think there's sort of an iceberg if we're seeing Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. But then underneath, you have WhatsApp, WeChat, Line, all the other platforms. And there's a lot going on. We're trying to understand this. But it's very difficult because they're created to be private. Yeah.
Does anyone have any other questions?
Chinese people in Australia.
Oh, in Australia. And then there was another one that maybe it's hard to do it right now, but like there was another.
我想请教一个问题啊，这么多的假新闻，有什么制裁的方式，或者是什么样的法则？谢谢。
Are you on the right channel? I think. Did you get it?
Sorry, could I just repeat the question in English from the translator, please?
Could the translator? Oh, can you hear it?
I've got it, yeah. So the question in English was, fake news is a big problem around the world. What kind of penalties are there for sharing this content? That's a good question. Potentially that's more of a question for government than me as a journalist. I know that this is criminalized very heavily in Turkey. I know they're also talking about passing a law about this in Singapore. I think those are probably and also Russia has a law about sharing rumors online. Maybe from the countries I mentioned, you may be spotted that they're all quite authoritarian countries with very little tolerance for freedom of speech. Personally, my view is like this issue of misinformation, disinformation is a big problem. I think it's up to us as journalists to fight it and also to work with technology companies. Once you have the government involved, once you criminalized forms of speech, where that goes, I'm not sure I want to go where that goes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your presentation, both of you, for also for your efforts in to verify the truth information online, because I think it's very important to have true information and fair information, because it's good, it's very good for democracy and how the democratic society works. And actually, I have a similar questions, just as the audience. Yeah, it's about the attitude and the mechanism of the online platforms such as Google's. From your corporation's attitude, so what's your thinking about the governments, internet governments regarding true information, and what's your opinion about the takedown mechanism? Especially when we see some European countries start to, try to enforce, the strict, law for the online platform to take more, more serious responsibility in verify and also take down the misinformation. So just want to know about the, your attitude. Of course, you talk about the, freedom of speech. Yeah, but since nowadays the online platform has a lot of users and a very strong social influence. So yeah, just the question to both of you. Thank you very much.
So I think that, well, I should start by saying that I am not a policy person. I am very much focused on working with journalists. And so my point of view is very much from the journalistic perspective. Maybe it's very egotistical, because I feel like journalists have a really important role to play in this. And from Google's perspective, we are, in this context, the way people are kind of encountering and and accessing information through us is through search. So when, in my ideal world, I think, people see something, maybe in their mind they're not sure whether it's right or it's not right, they go to search. and they want to find out if it's true. And so we as a company, we are working very hard, and that's why honestly we spend so much time working with journalists and news organizations on this, because we want to make sure that when people come to us to search, that they're getting a truthful answer, that the answer that they're getting is the one that is actually verified, that it has, and journalism, we hope, has a high standard. We have protocols. I mean, you look at what Storyful is doing, right? And so the idea is that with things like the fact check tag and other initiatives, that the good content is at the top. That's our goal. Google does believe in a free and open web, but we feel like what we are aiming to do is make sure that high quality content is the first thing you see when you come searching for us. That said, technology is evolving all the time. The methods that people use to create and spread misinformation and disinformation are changing all the time. So we are constantly changing our methods and improving our algorithms to be smarter as well. That is where the technology point comes in. And that's also why we are working to try to be very close to, the providers of high quality information, so that we are keeping an eye to the ground, an ear to the ground. We know how this information is spreading, because an algorithm is an algorithm. It is as good as the information that we put into it. So we need to talk to experts who know what's happening country by country, language by language, because this problem of misinformation and disinformation is very different all over the world. And so part of the challenge that we have is understanding enough on a local level so that we can actually train the machines to be smarter as well.
I think that's a good answer. But I think everyone can agree that the platforms, there's more work the platforms need to do. I think it's very easy for journalists to just say in response to this problem, oh, we must ban this, we must criminalize this type of speech. But then, do we need to ask, why are people sharing this? Why are they not reading what we write? I think there's a gap there. It's a question of news literacy. And also us as journalists connecting with our readers. Why is this popular? Why do they share this stuff? You can ban it, but it'll just pop up somewhere else. And also we need to, again, sort of, it's easy to reach for the kind of the ban option, but there's unforeseen consequences in every time you have an action. So I think everybody could agree it's a good idea to ban the Islamic State from broadcasting propaganda on social media. I think everybody is in favor of this, and the social networks have applied algorithms to start blocking this content, and this is a good thing. The problem is, though, that the story of the war in Syria is mainly told by not journalists but activists, people living in their city who film the conflict on their mobile phones and upload it to YouTube and other platforms. The algorithm is busy erasing this, and then also our archive, because it's being flagged as being linked with the Islamic State in other areas. So this is a part of history, a narrative of this conflict, potentially the only story of this conflict is being erased. So yeah, I think leaping to conclusions is, leaping to the ban option is risky. I think we as journalists can cover this with the help from the platforms, without resorting to them.
我想请教2个问题啊。第一个问题是，新闻事件它通常都是有一个重点叫做时机 timing， 就是说这个事件在发展的过程当中，资讯是最混乱的。那也所以假新闻、真资讯的关键的重点是都在跟时间赛跑。就像美国的总统大选，事后已经1年多了。Facebook 才承认他找到了400多个假账号，在选举期间大量用广告 的方式，其实它是就是用这个买卖的方式，用交易的方式，大量买了假的广告或假的新闻在脸书上散布，可是都选完了，希拉蕊也落选了啊，所以就是说，那我反过来讲，那我们刚刚提到的这个 Google， 我们想要了解，就是你有没有一个比较有效率的比较及时的，或者是比较健康、常态性的、有效率的一个机制，就所谓的平台治理的机制去善尽你作为一个平台业者的问责 accountability 的这样的一个角色，是不是可以有比较效率一点因为我是作为一个那个内容业者，就是 content provider 电视台的业者，我们其实在跟 Google， 我们比较多的互动是在盗版的处理。Google 有提供，或者 YouTube 有提供我们一些所谓的检举跟申告的机制，但是我们运作了这个1-2年下来，其实关键点都在效率不彰啦。就是我们做了很多的努力，可是盗版的东西还是大量的在 Google， 还有 Google Search 跟这个 Google 的网站上大量的呈现那所以我的意思就是说，反过来以美国总统大选为例子。效率怎么样能够让 Google 在假新闻的一个分辨上的效率是比较好的？那好，第二点就是说这个就是说如果有冒犯呢，不好意思，我先请大家体谅一下，就是说 Google 有没有在玩2手策略？就是说，一方面你发展一个所谓的打假的机制，给我们盗版的申告机制有一只大蜘蛛会在网站上用自动化的方式去处理这些盗版用自动化的方式去处理假新闻，但相对的同时，你的 Google Search 是卖钱的，你只要有买就可以在 Google Search 上放在前面就我们刚刚有讲到的关键字就是。我如果搜寻某一件事情比如总统大选，可能如果有买、有给钱提供给 Google 的这个假新闻，是不是就可以排到前面呢？因为在盗版的案例上，我们就看到很多盗版的业者，他只要把钱给了 Google， 他就在 Google Search 的排行榜是排前3名的那这个不论我们怎么申告都拿不下来。就以上，谢谢。
I'll jump in start first. I think I can only really answer part of it. So I mean, there's a problem with fact-checking. You have the story, the claim goes viral, and then you have the correction or the fact-check, it goes up, and then only maybe 1%, 10% of the people who share this will ever see the correction. Also, maybe dishearteningly, Facebook has been running a project in the United States where if you click on a story and you report it, you'll be sent to a team of journalists, and they will check the story and they'll fact check it. If they decide it's fake, they will mark the story on Facebook. So every time somebody shares this again, it will tell them this is fake. Unfortunately, they've done just some research came out last week. People will still share this even though they're being told it's fake. Why is that? Because it reinforces their own viewpoints. So this is a big problem. And to do this in real time is very difficult. In breaking news, it's very chaotic. This is why mistakes happen. But my message is really that we can do more as a journalist. Having a process, using these tools will help you speed up, help you avoid mistakes. But it's also difficult. I'll be honest, I don't think anybody in the US, even Facebook, was really expecting to find there was a Russian organization plotting to create fake news and to create, these Facebook groups. It's kind of difficult to solve the problem you don't know you have. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, as I mentioned before, everything, this whole ecosystem is just evolving so quickly, the misinformation, disinformation ecosystem, that we are all trying to keep up, right? I mean, again, as Ian said, I don't think anyone necessarily could have anticipated what happened in the United States. And so, but the lesson from there is now there's a big discussion around it. And Google is on the hot seat, Facebook is on the hot seat. I've been on many panels with someone from Facebook sitting next to me, and there are these poor journalists who are sitting on the same panel, and no one ever asks them questions. They just all ask us questions, right? Luckily, thank you for asking Ian some questions, so he doesn't feel like his trip was wasted. But I think that from our perspective, from my perspective, partnership is really important because, again, these are problems that are being perpetuated by humans that we are trying to get technology and machines to also help to solve. But we can't train those machines to help solve these problems until we know what the problem is. And the only way that we can know what the problem is by working with you all, because you guys see this on the ground. And I think that that's kind of been what we've seen. Election land was one example. Cross-check is another example. Wall check is another example. Those are experiments around elections to try to see what are the technologies, what are the techniques that can actually work in real time. Do they actually make a difference? And I think that we are working on all these projects, and the truth of the matter is that we don't know how successful they are until academia and researchers, that we were able to take a look back and actually see whether or not these projects are making a dent, which ones are successful, which ones are less successful. So I mean, that's really the state that we're in right now. Again, the search is built off of an algorithm, and we need to have more information to make that algorithm smarter. Now, to your question about search rankings and things like that, again, I'm going to reiterate that I am not a policy person. I'm also not on the business side of Google. Like reporters, I am a cost center. I spend money as opposed to make the money. But I think that the key thing for us in terms of that is to emphasize a couple things. One, we do not make money off of Google News. Okay, we do not make money off of it. Full stop. Also, Google News is a whitelist, so you have to apply to become part of Google News for your content to show up in Google News, okay? And that's actually, we have a team internally that actually reviews those applications. So that's one thing. Search, there are two sections of search. So there's the ads, which are at the very top, and those are paid. But search rankings are, you don't pay to play in the search rankings, okay? Our algorithms are built to try to provide the best information based on what someone is looking for, okay? So, the ads at the top, yes, those are paid, right? The rest of the search is based off of the algorithm, and that is constantly being adjusted and tweaked to help to deliver, with the mission of delivering the best information based on what people are searching for. And so, again, this is why it's really important for us to have these kinds of conversations and for you to ask hard questions and give us examples when things are not right, because that helps us. Like the example that I think was quite, that got a lot of publicity was the autocorrect feature, right? So, I think it was last year, there was a big scandal because if you typed in, if you're typing in the search bar, then, Google is trying to guess what your search is, right? And so there were some that were perpetuating misinformation, disinformation, some things that were negative. And so, with that feedback, now we have actually created a system where you can report. If you think that one of these autocompletes is problematic, you can actually report that to Google, and a team will look at that report. So, again, this is the kind of thing. Machines are okay smart, but one of the things that we always say within Google, if you talk to people who are working on machine learning and artificial intelligence, they'll say machines are very good at answering questions, but they're not good at asking questions. And in this environment where things are changing so much and people are innovating all kinds of ways to share incorrect information and make it very, very exciting to share, machines need to be taught. They don't know how to ask the right questions, and that's why journalists, as Ian said, we have a lot of tools. You can see all the different, this is just a few of the tools that are out there. But you actually, the challenging, difficult part is that a human being with the kind of curiosity and skepticism and detective skills is really needed to help you to answer the question. And so, that's a challenge. Now, that said, you'll notice that a number of those tools are actually Google tools. And one of the things that I am doing and my team within NewsLab is doing is we are working very closely with journalists to try to talk to the product teams because we know, because we are former journalists, we know how useful these tools are for this kind of work. So we want to talk to the product teams who are mostly engineers who never imagined that journalists would be using these tools and hopefully give them feedback so that they can actually make the tools work for journalists better. When you think about it, Google Maps and Earth was not built for journalists to do verification. It was built so that if I want to find out where the nearest Starbucks is, I can find out where the nearest Starbucks is, right? That was, it was for the average consumer. Now, Google is very much aware that journalists are using these tools for this very important work, and we want to make them better. Thank you so much.
Okay, we would like to thank Mr. Yu and Mr. Martin for the wonderful presentation and discussion with us. And so now please stay on the stage and let us have a photo together, okay? We are running out of time. Sorry, we are running out of time. 对，所以那请洪委员跟陈委员。Okay. Okay, thank you.
今天的这一场，我们有把它录影下来，然后我们大概会用1个多礼拜的时间送去外面翻译，然后再上字幕。所以如果你们就是事后还可以再回台里面再做内部训练的时候，大概再过2个礼拜之后，你可以在我们的那个 YouTube 的 channel 里面看到这一场的有上过翻译、上过字幕的，那你们就可以更清楚的去了解说怎么样去做网络讯息查证这样子的内容，好不好？谢谢。